Hello students joining from various countries around the world for this live session of IELTS speaking tips and strategies for part 2 with some practice. My name is Adrian and I am broadcasting to you from Budapest, Hungary, Central Europe. Welcome everyone. Hi Mohammed Fazul. Hi Rumjum. Buhian. Good to see so many students joining in. All right. So our materials, as usual, as I've written into the stream, they're coming from our websites. So if you're studying for academic IELTS, check us out at aehelp.com. We have lots of great materials there for you, over 100 hours of video lessons, HD quality, an interactive course, and 6 original practice exams, as well as help for writing and speaking. So aehelp.com. Check us out there. You can try the course for free if you like it. Join the full course. Spend a little, save a lot. If you're studying for general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. And we have materials specifically for general IELTS students, targeting those students' needs there. You can also download our apps from your Play or iTunes store. Just look for our logo, search for Academic IELTS Help. As well, you can get our books from Amazon in digital or paperback format. For academics, search for AE Help's Academic IELTS on Amazon. For general, search for GE Help's General IELTS. If you have questions about our products, just send me an email or about IELTS. Adrian at aehelp.com. It's my name, at aehelp.com. You can contact me there. And as we get going with the class, let's look at a little bit at the schedule. By the way, I do know that a lot of students, a lot of our regular students are writing exams in the coming week for IELTS. So good luck to all of you. I'm with you in spirit. Our IELTS live streaming schedule is according to Central European Time. That's CET time. If you put that into Google, you can see the time difference between your time and our time, unless you're in Central Europe, in which case it's the same time. This is the schedule for 19th to the 30th. Today we're doing speaking part 2. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at a special kind of diagram that was requested by one of our members. When you're a member of our Academic English Help channel that you're on right now, you get access to our 6 exams that we use in these classes. You can request special classes if you have some questions. We can schedule those. As well, you get access to our private video list archives for past lessons. And then on Sunday, we're doing some video shoots for publishing. So no class then, no class on Monday and Tuesday, and then we're back on Wednesday with a class on pronunciation and how to learn pronunciation and how to master that. And then, of course, more classes going up until the 27th. So let's get into the IELTS speaking now. This is a speaking. We are focusing on speaking today, students. Hi, Aditi Gupta. Hi, Jeffrey. Good to see you in class. Because we're focusing on speaking, make sure to repeat. You should try to repeat me when you hear me say, especially kind of common expressions, salutations, greetings, interesting expressions. If you hear new words that I'm using, I highly recommend repeating those and writing them down. It's great practice, okay? If you miss some, it's not the end of the world. You can always come back and check this video later when it's up on the channel. All right. So a little bit about the speaking section. Of course, it has 3 parts. The IELTS speaking you will do either a day before or a day after the written exam. Sometimes it's on the same day, but in many cases it's one day before or one day after. The interview takes anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. I would say the average is about 12 minutes per candidate, or should be. It has 3 parts. Part 1, some questions on a general topic to get to know you a little bit better and ask you some easier questions for those lower band scores. Then you get a part 2 in the speaking, which is a 2-minute little mini speech. In this part, you get a card. The card will have some questions on it, like this one here. And then you have 1 minute to prepare your answers, read the questions, think about what you're going to say, organize your ideas, and respond for the 2 minutes. The examiner will time you, and they will record your responses as well. They do mark you in real time, but if somebody contests their mark, that means they think they should be getting a higher score, they will listen to the recording and see if that's true or not. Okay, and then after part 2, there's a part 3 with some specific follow-up questions connected to part 2, about 5-6 additional questions related to part 2. They will be more in-depth, more detailed, higher level grammar, and of course, altogether that's looking for the higher band 7, 8, 9. Okay, so let's look at part 2. First, let's just warm up a little bit. So you walk into the IELTS exam. The examiner says, good day. Please have a seat. May I see your identification, please? What should you say when the examiner asks you for your identification? Because I have heard some pretty weird responses from students before, and it's important that this is natural. So may I see your identification, please? What should you say to this? Or they might say, may I see your passport, please, and just ask directly for that. Alien Eater says, say something like, sure, here you are. Tainder, yes, sure is maybe a little bit too simple. Sandeep, yes, sure, here it is, not here is it. Here is it as a question, so careful. Here it is, okay? So yes, sure. Yes, sure is okay. If you want to be a little bit more polite, I would say yes, certainly. Here you are, or here you go, okay? Here it is, or let's just keep it with those two. Yes, certainly is more polite. It's more respectful. Also, if you use the word certainly, it's a little bit of a higher level vocabulary than just saying sure. Okay? So yes, certainly. Here you go. Or yes, certainly. This is what I was thinking of. Please take a look. Okay? So that would be the most polite way. Yes, certainly. Please take a look. And then hand it to the examiner. That would be the most respectful way of saying it. Okay, then of course the examiner will say, can I have your full name, please? Or can I ask your full name, please? All right. Now, here's kind of a little bit of a funny advice, but important. Make sure that when you give your name, it is the same as what you have in your passport. I have seen passports from different countries, and I've noticed that sometimes the names that students give me don't really match up with the names in their passports that accurately. I've seen this with Arabic students and Asian students, so be careful with that. Make sure that your name matches, and if it doesn't, explain why it doesn't, or explain why you're called something different, okay? So Jeffrey says, my first name is Steven and my last name is Chu. Please just call me by my first name, Steven, or please just call me Steve. Right, Jeffrey, that would be a good response. Jubilant James says, my given name is Jubilant, my surname is James. Please just call me Jubilant. Really, I didn't know that. I would have thought the other way around, James, but Jubilant James, but interesting. Okay, so yes, my given name is John, and my surname is Smith. I'm going very unique here. Please just refer to me as John. Okay, that would be an even more technical way to express it. So that's very technical. If you start your conversation in this way, so you walk in, the examiner says, may I see your identification, please? Again, repeat these after me. And instead of saying, yes, sure, here you are, you say, yes, certainly, please take a look. And then they say, can I ask your full name, please? And you say, yes, my given name is John. my surname is Smith. Please just refer to me as John. So if you use the yes, certainly, here you go, please take a look, and you use this one here, it's very polite, very intelligent, and right away you're giving the examiner the feeling that, hey, I'm dealing with a high-level English-speaking, intelligent student. So these are good ways to kick off your speaking interview. Okay, and then they'll break into part one. So the interviewer will say, okay, now I will ask you some questions on a general topic, get to know you a little bit better. And they'll ask you some icebreakers and so on. We won't bother too much with those today because we're focusing on part two. So once you're done with part one, the examiner will say, okay, that is the end of part one. Now we will continue with part two. Kesra, I see your question there. Kesra's saying, what about leaving it up to them? Like, you can call me whatever you want to call me. No, Kesra, I definitely don't. I definitely don't recommend doing that. Thanks for making me laugh, though. But I'm pretty sure that the examiner will give you a kind of a strange look and say, excuse me? It's a bit awkward in English. So, no, don't leave it up to them. Let them know what you want them to refer you as. Okay, I know, Kessler. I got that and it made me laugh. Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay, so part two, they'll say, okay, here's a card. Please don't turn it over. You will have 1 minute to look at the card, look at the questions, prepare your notes, take notes if you wish. Here's some note paper and a pencil. They will give you the note paper and the pencil. You don't have to worry about that. And then they'll say, are you ready to begin? And as soon as you say, yes, I am, then turn over the paper and start going. When they ask you, are you ready to begin? If they ask you, sometimes they'll just say, okay, please begin now. But if they say, are you ready to begin? If they actually ask you, you might say something like, take a deep breath and say, okay, now I'm ready to go. So it's good to just kind of let go, relax, get focused, and take a deep breath, and then say, yes, I'm ready, let's go, okay? And then they'll say, okay, your 1 minute preparation time begins now. So you turn over the card and you see this information. It says, describe something you made yourself for a friend or family member. What it was, how did you make it, when did you make it, who you gave it to, how did you and your friend or family feel about it? So those are the questions, okay? Now, of course, you have that 1 minute preparation time. Okay, what's your first step here? So what is step one? As soon as you read these questions, so you read the questions, of course, read the card. What should you do? So you've read the card, what are you doing? Alien Eater, okay, let's start the ball rolling. It's an interesting idiom to use when they say, let's get going, but I think it's a little bit too colloquial. I wouldn't use that in this context, okay? Even though you're right and the meaning is correct, it's just too colloquial. It's too slang. It would be awkward in an interview situation. Jubilant James says, identify what you're expected to talk about. Here you're talking about an object. Roshni Kunte says, yeah, recognize that it's an object or an event or a person or a place, right, Roshni? Those are the other two. Yeah, absolutely. That is your first step. So are you looking at an object here? Or are you talking about an object, a place, person, event? As soon as you know that, you're in a much better position. So recognize that in this case, you are talking about an object. Okay? So what do you need to consider when you realize the card is about an object? So what do you need to consider? Yeah, Mohammed, good to see you in class as well. Yeah, absolutely. So what do you need to consider? What do you need to think about now that you've realized that it's an object? So Jeffrey says, well, think about its appearance. So what does it look like? And definitely here, you're going to have to mention that because you made something, okay? Rakesh Yadav says shape, the size. Yeah, that all has to do with the appearance of the object, okay? Yen Li, you're jumping a little bit ahead with the cake, but it's not a bad idea, okay? So other than the appearance, what else do you have to think about? The materials is still part of the appearance, Roshni, what you're actually using. Okay. Mohammed, you're jumping ahead to step number 2, I think. Okay, so origin, right? Here, because you made it, obviously you are the origin, but you might think about the materials, where you actually got the materials from, right? Okay, you're also thinking about the function, right? So what it's used for, the function of the object, right? These are the key points. So remember, it doesn't matter what the object is. If it's a different question, if you have to talk about an object that you lost or something that you found, you're still thinking about these points: appearance, origin, function, and anything else? You could talk about its importance, right? So its importance to you or to another person. So these are the 4 points that are generally important to think about when you're talking about an object. So here we're talking about an object that you made, but it doesn't matter what the object is. These 4 points are important to get a high band score. Okay, if you want to get a high band score, you need to think about these 4 aspects when talking about an object. Now, with people, places, and events, it's a little bit different. Make sure you check out our website or other videos for that, or you can check out the videos on our website. Okay, so we definitely need to include that. Now, step 2 is what? So, okay, of course, this is happening quickly, right, girls and guys? So the 1 minute starts now. You turn over the card. You read the card in about 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Right away, you realize this is an object. Right away, you realize I have to talk about the appearance, the origin, the function, and the importance of this object, okay? So no, you don't need to talk about disadvantages, Shiraz. It's not asking you for that, okay? Megha, you can think of the what, why, how, when, and so on. So you can think of those W questions, but even more importantly and more accurately, focus on these points to discuss, okay? Roshni, the order here is pretty much what you're looking at. So you talk about what it is, the appearance of it, where it's from, the function of it, the utility, and the importance of it. If you talk about it in this way, you'll be fine. So what's step 2? So what's step 2? So Jubilant James says, visualize that object, okay? And I think it was Mohammed, one of our other members earlier, that said the correct step 2, which is immediately think about the easy answer. Think about what 9 from 10 people will say. So especially with this question, and for those of you that are joining in now, you can always look at the question in the stream description, okay? So in this live stream, if you look at the description, you can see these questions. They're in there. I put them in there for you, okay? Aditya, Jubilant James, you're saying it now. You're saying, yeah, think about what 9 from 10 people would say. What is an object that you made for that you made by yourself for a friend or a family member? A lot of us don't make gifts anymore. We live in a world of consumerism where, and we live in very busy times, very busy lives. So I don't know about you, but I think a lot of us don't actually make gifts, make objects as much maybe these days as we used to in the past for our friends or family members. So this might actually be a little bit tricky for some people because they might think, oh, geez, what do? I haven't made anything for anyone in a long time. Can I ask for another card? No, you cannot. okay? They will not give you another card. Once that minute starts, that's your minute, so don't start asking them for a different card because they'll just look at you and say, please just focus on the card, okay? Yeah, you can absolutely make food, okay? So food is not a bad idea. So think about what 9 from 10 people would say. I think a dish would be probably a good one. I really liked that answer from the one student who said cake. So let's say one would be a cake. Okay, what if it's not food? What if it's not cake? So somebody says, how about making a diet plan, Harmeet Singh? I don't know if 9 out of 10 people, Harmeet Singh, would say diet plan, and I think you might get into trouble with that. A birthday cake could be one. Sure. A painting or a drawing, a sculpture, maybe. Okay. Sure, a picture could be one. I don't know if that would be a top choice. What is an item? Here's an interesting way. So I'm always encouraging you to use your critical thinking and always think outside the box to think of easy answers. So I haven't seen one that comes to my mind. Organizing a party, Rams Shino, would be a big problem because it says in the question, something you made yourself for a friend. Organizing a party is not really something you make, it's something you organize. It would be a little bit awkward. Here we're thinking something more of an object. What is something, here's a good question for all of you to think outside the box. What is something people often make by hand in all kinds of cultures? So in all cultures around the world, whether it's Chinese culture, Indian culture, American culture, what is something people make by their hands for children, for kids? Okay, clothing could be another one. So clothing is a good answer, I think, but that's not what I'm thinking of here. I'm thinking of a more specific item. Okay, crafts. What kind of toy or craft is commonly made for children all around the world by parents, brothers, cousins? What is the classic toy that all of us at some point make? It's not origami, it's not a hat. If you use your visual skills here, I think a lot of you will start thinking about it. What is one of the most amazing toys when you're a small child to go outside and play with? I see one person so far has gotten what I'm thinking of. Boat is not a bad one, Rakesh. I was actually thinking of a kite, but I see some of you thinking of a boat, okay? So let's go fly a kite, says Jeffrey. Absolutely. So I would say a kite or a toy boat is okay as well, okay? So a toy boat or a kite would be an excellent object to think about as a response for this answer. I think a birthday cake could be another good one as well. A picture and a clothing I wouldn't recommend. So it would be 1, 2, and 3. These would be my 3 top choices. Picture, clothing, I simply wouldn't recommend because I think it's a little bit more difficult to describe, okay? So cake is easy. A kite is quite easy, absolutely, to talk about. And a toy boat is easy as well. So these are fairly easy objects to talk about making them, who you made them for, why you made them, even if you have to make it up, okay? This is one of those questions where making up a story about making a kite for your cousin or your brother or your child is maybe a little bit easier than telling a true story about making some piece of clothing by knitting or weaving or embroidering, where you have to know more technical words, okay? So now when you have this, okay, then what's your step 3? So here we're still in note-taking. Okay. So again, and believe me, you can do this in 1 minute. When you practice at home, you can do this in 1 minute. So you turn over your card, You're looking at it, you see that it's an object, you know you have to talk about the appearance, the function, the origin, and the importance. You think, okay, what would 9 from 10 people say? Maybe a cake, maybe a kite, maybe a toy boat. You choose one that you think will be the easiest for you to talk about. And then, what do you do as your third step during that 1 minute time to think about your answer? Okay. Shiraz, you might want to talk about a picture, but a picture could be tricky as well. There's a lot of technical words where you can get lost. If you're talking about doing an oil painting for one of your friends' birthdays or something, you'd want to be careful, okay? You want to be careful. What kind of colors did you use? How did you combine them? Why did you do a picture? It could be tricky, okay? So, what do you do as your third step? And one of you mentioned this. So one of you said, yeah, so James says organizing the questions, right, of what you're going to say. So here is where you want to take some couple word notes, right? So here's where you want to think about your W questions. Okay, so W questions. So here is where you want to think about the what, the when, the where, the who. The where, okay? What should be your first, okay? So these are actually in sequence here for this question. What definitely needs to be first because we need to think about what is it, okay? People are concerned about time, but they're even more concerned about who. So 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, that's generally the order of information that humans like to see. We want to know what it is. We want to know who you gave it to in this situation, why you gave it to them, when you gave it to them. These can be a little bit mixed up, and then where is less important. Now, you don't need to write down these W questions, but you need to write down in point form the notes, okay? So your note paper, okay, when you're actually looking at the note paper, it should look something like this. So this would be my first note. Large, colorful kite. Okay, so these would be my notes here. Large, colorful kite for my nephew. If you make a spelling mistake, don't worry about it. Nobody's checking your spelling on your notes, okay? So don't start tripping out about spelling. Why for his birthday? Is that enough for the whys? No, why is where you need to expand. Loves kites, loves things that fly, okay? Okay, now you can expand on that. When? Last year. Be specific. Last September. Okay. Where? At birthday party. Okay. So this would be what your note paper should actually look like in that 1 minute. Don't write single words, okay? Sometimes what students do is they'll just go kite. Kite is not enough. If you write only kite, it's too short, and then what happens is you start creating some brief sentences and brief ideas, and you run out of ideas very quickly. So you'll say, oh, I made a kite for my nephew for his birthday. Whoa, 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 slow down. You can give a lot more information there. So I made this huge kite for my nephew. It was roughly 1 meter high and about 1.5 meters wide, okay? So that word large right away will let you know that I can include more information to discuss how large it was and why was it so large and what did I use to make that large kite, okay? So that helps you more. Let me bring you back on camera here and then we'll start composing our answer. So the examiner will then, once your 1 minute is up, say, okay, your 1 minute preparation time is up. Please begin speaking. So now you actually have to begin. And before you begin, so before you hear this sentence from the examiner, you should have your first sentence ready. If it helps, write it down in your notes. What could be a good first sentence? What could be a good first sentence to start off this 2-minute little mini speech? So there's a bit of the question there. Okay, so you're starting off your little mini talk, and you need to have that first sentence ready to go. Way too many students waste the first 10 seconds after the examiner says begin speaking. They waste that first 10, 15, 20 seconds just thinking and going, and looking at their notes. Don't do that. If you're doing that at home when you're practicing for the IELTS, make sure that you learn to stop doing that, okay? That's a really important point. While you're thinking about the first sentence for this, I'll write that down. So don't take 10, because they'll start the time. So don't take 10, 15 seconds to say your first sentence. That's a big don't, okay? Also, don't start with something like, I've made a lot of different objects for different people. One that I would like to talk about today is an object that I made for my nephew. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's way too much wasted time and energy. Just get right into it, okay? So Jeffrey says, maybe start with something like, I still have fresh memories of making a huge kite for my nephew's birthday, for my nephew. Okay, so something like that, sure. For my nephew. Okay, sure. So you could have that, okay? So don't waste those first 15 seconds, okay? Pachu says, I'd like to tell you about a kite which I gave to my friend. Pachu, don't start that way, okay? It's not terrible, but it's not great either. Just tell me, okay? I know you want to tell me because I'm asking you to tell me, so just tell me about it. Just say, I made a big kite which I gave to my friend for his birthday. So get right into it, okay? Shiraz says, well, I remember a time I made a kite for my nephew last year. Shiraz, that's a good way too. You're getting right into it, all right? That's the best. You want to get right into it. Start with a fairly simple sentence. Jiamin Bat says it's probably a good idea. I agree, Jiamin. Don't start with some really complex sentence where you run the danger of making a mistake right away, all right? So good. John Noriel or Serrano, I want to tell you that I gave a kite. Again, don't start like that, John. You don't want to tell me, just tell me, okay? Just say, I gave a kite to my nephew. So get right into it. The last thing I made this is Danica de Leon she's saying, the last gift I made was for my nephew. I made a large kite. Danica, it's good. Just don't use the word thing, okay? Thing is not good in speech. It's not good in writing. It has zero value. What thing, right? So careful with those notes. Pay attention to what I said there because those were some key pieces of advice of how to increase your band score. Okay, so good. So we started off that first sentence. I still have a fresh memory of making a large kite for my nephew. This is because I made it for his, as a birthday gift. For his 6th birthday last November. Okay, good. Now notice that what I'm doing here is I'm connecting information. So this first sentence was suggested by Jeffrey. He says, I still have a fresh memory of making a large kite for my nephew. Now, when you're at home, what you should practice is coherence between your sentences, okay? So here, what I'm talking about is the connection between your ideas. And of course, you can connect ideas by saying furthermore, in addition, as a result, because. But it's very important to connect information. And when you tell someone, I still have a fresh memory of making a large kite for my nephew, the listener in their brain right away is thinking, why is that memory fresh? So you want to give that information right away. This is because I made it as a birthday gift for his 6th birthday last November. Okay? All right, and now you want to get into a little bit of more of what it was, right? So think about the questions. Don't forget about your notes, okay? Way too many students don't look at their notes. When you take notes for 1 minute and you write down some really good ideas like these, make sure to use them, okay? The examiner lets you keep the card and lets you keep your notes during the 2 minutes because they think that, hey, that's for you to use while you're speaking. It's okay to look at them. It's okay to pause for a couple of seconds to read your notes so that you can use it in your speaking, okay? So use it. So here I look at my notes and I see it's a large colorful kite. Hopefully I've kept that in mind. Still quite early on. So I say something like, it is a large, colorful kite, roughly a meter tall and a meter wide, kind of triangular shaped. With red, purple, green, and blue colors. I remember this because these are my nephew's favorite colors. Okay, so again, connecting that information, and I'm expressing. So I'm taking that large, colorful kite and taking it one step further. So notice here that I'm using some visible, measurable, quantitative information. It's a meter tall, a meter wide, kind of triangular shaped. Red, purple, green, blue. So I'm letting the listener visualize and see what I'm talking about. Okay, that's very important for good communication. And when you do that, your band scores will certainly improve. Okay, John Noriel, you're not really giving examples for these questions because in some way the entire response here is a specific example. You're talking about an object that you made for your nephew. It's a very specific object. It's handmade, so it in itself is in entirety an example, okay? Now, Pachu, you're right. You want to include some complex compound sentences. You want to remember your correlative and your coordinating and subordinating conjunctions. Okay, so let's keep going here a little bit. So we're talking about what it looks like. What should we talk about next? So what would be a good next sentence? So what would be a good way to follow this up? Okay, and I think, Jeffrey, you had a pretty good sentence there before of how we can continue here. Roshni says we could talk about the function. I agree, Roshni. So you could go a few different directions here. You could talk about the function. There is a big question. So after the what question, what do we usually talk about? Before we talk about the what, or sorry, before we talk about the function, And in some ways, Russian, it might be the function. So when we talk about the what is usually the next question? What is the second most important question that we ask after the what question? Yeah, Jubilant James, that's right. It is a why, okay? So in most cases, humans are interested in the why. So when we talk about the what, what's going on, what's happening, the next question that most people will ask is why, okay? Just think about small kids. They're programmed for this. It's the way that we build our knowledge. So what is it? What is it? Why, right? First question that children ask when they're really little. My daughter does this. She says, what is that, Dad? What is that? And now she's getting a little bit older. She's getting closer to 3. And now she's starting to ask why, right? So that's what happened. So why? So why did you make this gift? Right? That's what you should be thinking about. Of course, you've already said it's a birthday gift, but why? Why did you choose this as a birthday gift? Shiraz, 2-3 seconds pause, especially if you're thinking about a good sentence to say, is absolutely okay. Shiraz, if you're taking a short break because you're thinking of an idea like a why, that's okay. It's if you can't think of a word where you start to lose marks. So Rakesh says it's cheap, it's handmade, it's more meaningful when it's handmade, right? So those are some good ideas. Remember our notes, right? So here's the whys. It's his birthday, he loves kites, he loves flying objects. So that's where you want to spend a bit of time, is with the why answers, why questions, right? So I made a kite for my nephew. Let's give him a name. Tom, because I know that he loves flying objects such as planes and helicopters ever since he was a little boy, just a few years old. Okay, so right away, you put that in there, all right? Jeffrey says he's always been fascinated by flying objects such as origami planes, and he has plenty of them, so I decided to make a kite for him. Jeffrey, that's a perfect sentence, okay? So you're going for that high mark, okay? John Nuriel, there is a proper sequence. There's no perfect rule, or there's no expected sequence, but the proper sequence to asking the questions is what, why, how. Okay, that's generally the proper sequence. And then we ask who, when, where. Okay, because humans want to know what is it. They want to first be clear. Then they need a reason for it. So that's the why. Then they need a how. So how does it work? And then we're interested as who is it, or whose is it, right? The ego in us. And then we're interested about the when. We're locked by time. It's the common denominator of all humans. And then where, by location. So that's usually the sequence. Good question, John Nero. All right. Jubilant James is saying, can we also include the amount of time we spent making it and what fascinated us to make it? Absolutely, Jubilant James. Absolutely. So you can say it took me about 10 hours to make over the course of a week. Sure. It took me about 10 hours to make over the course of a week. And I used not only carbon fiber poles, but also high quality textiles to complete this project. Sure. Now, if you don't know the words that I just used, they're saying carbon fiber poles or high quality textiles, you can keep it more simple. So you can say I used some sticks and a garbage bag, okay? You don't have to get fancy. Don't try to get fancy. if you don't know the right vocabulary, because then you'll make mistakes and your score will go down. Even if you use simple words, as long as they are clear, you can get a nice high score. Shiraz is saying, how many idioms should we include in this 2 minutes? Shiraz, none. Okay, my suggestion is don't include idioms. 19 out of 20 times when I see students trying to forcefully put idioms into their speech, they use them in awkward ways, they use them incorrectly, and when that happens, your score goes down. You don't really get bonus points for using an idiom, okay? If you're using just clear language, of course, you should try to use some phrasal verbs and some expressions. I'm not saying don't use anything of natural language. Then you can still get a very high mark. You can even get a 9, okay? So idioms are more dangerous than they are useful. That's the reality, okay? Aditya is asking, if we can't answer all of the questions in the 2 minutes, what will happen? You'll lose marks, Aditya. So you do lose marks if you don't answer all of the questions given, okay? All right, so far so good. We've talked about what we've made, who we made it for, why we made it, how we made it, when we made it. Okay, so we should, at this point, okay, and this is where a lot of students get lost. This is the what I call the danger zone in the people's 2-minute speaking, or in students' 2-minute speaking, okay. So danger zone, many students get stuck and lost here. Stuck, lost, and begin pausing or repeating or saying strange ideas. Okay, I've seen it all. Teaching the IELTS many years, I've seen it often and I've seen it all. This happens at about 1 minute, 1 minute 20 seconds, 1 minute 30 seconds, where students think, uh-oh, I've run out of ideas. I've said everything I can. My brain is now suddenly empty. It's like somebody took a giant eraser and put it in my head and just went, and there's nothing there. And now all I can do is just repeat what I've said, or look blankly at the examiner and hope that he or she just stops me and saves me from this atrocious situation. I see it all the time, okay? Or some students I've seen where they just start talking about things. And my nephew is so great. He's such a cute little guy. I really love my nephew. I hope I get to hang out with him again. So I see all of those. Not good, okay? What do? So here, when you get to that danger zone, okay, when you get to that 1 minute, 20 seconds, and you still have 40 seconds to go, don't panic, okay? Don't panic. The first thing that you should do, so this is what you do when you get into this danger zone, okay? So look at your notes. Look at the questions on the card. Okay, if you see something on the card, or if you see something in your notes where you're like, oh, wait, I didn't say that yet, or I didn't say anything about that, then you can talk about that. If you look at the questions and you say, oh, I didn't answer that question yet, definitely answer that question. So the card is very important, okay? And I've got a little bit more for you there. So you look at the card. Okay, where's that card? Okay, so what was it? How did you make it? Okay, I didn't even really talk about how I made it yet. I said what I used, but I didn't say how I made it. So I used some glue. I glued it all together. I used a needle and thread. I sewed it together. Okay, I did say when I made it, so I'm good on that question. Who I gave it to. Okay, so I said I gave it to my nephew. How did you and your friend or family feel about it? Okay, we didn't talk about that. So definitely we want to talk about that. If I don't talk about that, I lose points. And many times when students get into that danger zone, I'm thinking, I'm the examiner, I'm looking at them, I'm going, wow, just look. I can't tell you this because in an exam situation, the examiner can't tell you this, but it's painful for them. Believe me, they're actually in pain for you because they know there's a question on that card that you haven't answered yet. And in their head, they're screaming at you going, look at the card. There's a question you're not answering. So I know that because that's what's happening in my brain. So your brain, you've got this big eraser and you're panicking. And my brain, I'm going, oh, look at the card. Okay, so look at the card. I made it using glue, some thread, and a needle. After completing this project, this kite, and surprising Tom with it, he absolutely loved it. Immediately, we went to the park near his house with the other kids and took the kite for her maiden flight. Okay, so I just kind of ripped along there, gave you an idea, but here what I'm focusing on is answering the question. Now, if you're really good and you've talked very fast and you've described all of the information and you're still in that danger zone, you still have some time left, then give an example. Okay, so that's where you give an example. And the example here, I mean, what did you do with the kite, or what did he do with the kite? Okay, and that's just what I did at the end there. Is we took it out for a flight. Okay, so we took it out, took it flying. He loved it. There was good wind. It was powerful. It was the kite was dragging my nephew along on the grass because it was so big. So visually be there, describe that. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at this now. It looks quite complete. It should be roughly 2 minutes of speech. Again, repeat after me. So I'm going to go through this. Repeat after me. This is how you need to be practicing this at home. Then you need to be using your cell phone or recorder or your computer or your tablet. Record your speech, listen to it, make sure it sounds natural, correct it, add to it, take away from it, make it perfect, okay? Repeat after me. So, I still have a fresh memory of making a large kite for my nephew. This is because I made it as a birthday gift for his birthday last November. It is a large, colorful kite, roughly 1 meter tall and 1 meter wide, kind of triangular shaped with red, purple, green, and blue colors. I remember this because these are my nephew's favorite colors. I made a kite for my nephew Tom because I know that he loves flying objects such as planes and helicopters, and he's loved these ever since he was just a few years old. It took me about 10 hours to make over the course of a week. And I used not only carbon fiber poles, but also high-quality textiles to complete this project. I wanted the kite to be strong so it would last a long time. I made this kite using some strong glue, some thread, and needle. I watched a few videos on YouTube on how to make good quality kites. And then after completing the project and finishing up the kite, I surprised Tom with it during his birthday. He absolutely loved it. After he opened his gift, we immediately went to the park near his home with some of the other kids and took the kite for her maiden flight. I know that Tom's really enjoyed flying the kite ever since with his friends, his parents, his dad, my brother, and I'm really happy that I decided to make him this gift. Okay, all right, so I made some corrections there and added some information to make it more natural, but that's the idea. The key here, ladies and gentlemen, is remember when you have that 1 minute preparation time, you have 3 important steps. Step number 1, look at the card, decide whether it's an object, a person, a place, or an event. Depending on which one it is, remember there are important points that you need to consider when you're planning your notes and giving your response. Then step 2, during that 1 minute time, decide on an easy answer. Don't set yourself up to fail. Don't put yourself in a trap. Don't choose something difficult. Sometimes making up the answer is easier than thinking about something real, okay? Step 3, organize your notes carefully. Think about what, why, how, who, when, where. That's usually the correct order. Use 2 to 3 word notes so that you can give lots of details. Practice at home, okay? Practice at home, record your answers. That's it for me today, girls and guys. Tomorrow, members chat, special diagram, task 1 type lesson, diagram within a diagram. Again, to learn from high quality materials that use correct strategies, using psychology, using educational techniques focused on the student learning. Join us, aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Remember, it's a good idea to spend a few dollars to get good structured materials so that you learn well for the IELTS, you pass the first time, you get high bands, and you don't have to worry about paying that really expensive exam fee and then stressing for another test, okay? So we want the best for you. We know that's the right way to do it. Thank you so much for joining today. Much love to all of you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye for now, everyone.